Victor, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and update us a little bit on where we're at as a church in terms of caring for the environment and what some of our plans are for the future, as well as the bigger picture. And I know you've done an enormous amount of work already. So just tell us some of the things that have really encouraged you. What have we managed to achieve so far as a church?
Okay, well, obviously, the main thing we've done so far is we've managed to get our bronze award for EcoChurch. And prior to lockdown, I was really encouraged by all of the steps that lots of people in the church were making to make their organizations more environmental, their operations more environmentally friendly, through from being more careful about recycling things, through to replacing the disposable plastic table covers at the Ark with something which could be reused and wiped down each time. And then at the PCC meeting in March, the PCC made three important decisions. First of all, they followed General Synod and the diocese by committing to make year-on-year reductions in our carbon emissions and to work towards net carbon zero by 2030. Secondly, that when we consider our reconfiguration of our buildings, energy efficiency should be important. And then thirdly, given we've got some delays to how long that's going to take, that we should start now to offset our carbon emissions. And we're going to do that through a scheme that Enable Bisoga has set up with Climate Stewards to plant trees, fruit trees and native trees around churches in Uganda.
And I can't tell you the joy it was to me when whoever, you and Andy and others came up with this scheme. Just brilliant for us to be partnering with Enable Bisoga in helping them, and it helps us. And yeah, it's just a win-win.
Win-win.
Yeah, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Okay, so as well as those things, what are some of the next steps which you would love us to be able to take as we work towards a silver EcoChurch award?
Okay. The first thing is that our first priority must be, as we build back and restart our activities after the pandemic, that we don't lose all the positive steps which we've taken so far. And that's got to be our number one priority. We then need to think about doing an energy audit on the main church and to start thinking about moving the lighting in the church to be LED lighting. I'd love the church grounds to be more attractive. And it'd be great to have some flowers for pollinators and plants which might produce berries for the birds. And it'd be great to see a wider engagement with the local community on the environment. The activities we're doing so far, the litter pickers, looking after Colbert Green, are great, but we could do more. And what I wonder is, could we have an event in September in the Great Big Green Week? That'd be good.
Okay, some useful things for us to think about there, exciting plans. And how about, I mean, you mentioned briefly earlier on about the changes to our buildings. What sort of things do we need to bear in mind there as we think about, bigger changes to the buildings and the impact on environment and so on?
Okay, well, what I have to remember is this building project is something which we're unlikely to repeat for a long time. But it's also a great opportunity that we have to do. So what's important is it's essential that we take advantage of this opportunity to make sure that the new build is as energy efficient as possible. But while we do that, we just have to bear in mind that there's what's called inbuilt carbon in the construction materials. And we might want to think about using recycling materials to some of those building materials, if that's possible. It would be great to have renewable energy through solar panels. But we must remember, our largest carbon footprint at the moment is from heating the church. And we still need to think about that and work on that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously because we're having to ventilate the building so much more at the moment, and because the weather isn't great for July, actually, it saddens me that we've got the heating on even in July at the moment when we are using the building. It's not ideal at all, but we are where we are, and we've got this ambition to really improve on this, and as you say, to have year-on-year decrease in emissions, and we still want to work towards that. Okay, so in September, we've got this COP26 summit coming up in this country. Just fill us in a little bit. So we're talking global scale here. What's so important about this particular summit?
Last few years, the average global temperature has been about 1 degree above pre-industrial levels. That's the result of the historic emissions of carbon dioxide. Essentially, that temperature rise is baked in. It's not going to go away. The scientists tell us that we should try and keep that temperature rise within 1.5 degrees. Otherwise, some very serious things might start to happen. And that means we need to rapidly reduce carbon emissions. And what we want at the COP26 summit in November is for countries to commit to timescales for reductions that are realistic. And we need them to move further and faster in those reductions. And what we have to remember is that those temperature rises will have consequences for our global neighbours around the world. And many of those who've contributed very little to that temperature rise will actually see some of the most significant effects. And that's why it's important that we take action as soon as we can.
Okay, so final question then. How do you think we can be praying, not just for COP26, but more generally and so on as well?
Well, our leaders, of course, naturally tend to think about what is happening tomorrow or what the next election is. What we need to pray is that the leaders and the governments of these countries may have boldness to act with real urgency and have the impetus to take those commitments and turn them into action. What I would like to suggest is that everybody selects one country. It might be a big country, it might be a small country. Find out who the leaders are in the government and pray for that government up to COP26. Also, remember the people behind the scenes. There's lots of people who will be doing the negotiations. There will be lots of scientists providing evidence and information. Pray for those people who will be involved. And then pray for the Christian witness, all of the activities being organized by faith groups around the country. And I'd particularly highlight the Young Christian Climate Network. They've got a relay walk to COP26. And they'll be in Winchester on Saturday. They'll be walking they'll pass through Winchester on Saturday the 24th. And we should be praying for them and their witness. And then finally, I think for ourselves, that we're going to be open to changes in our lifestyle, which are going to be needed. That we might be living simply, that others may simply live.
Thank you. Yeah, that's such a powerful slogan, but so much truth behind it. And thank you. Some really practical ideas for prayer, and I'll make sure that we get some links to some of those things that people can look at on the website as well, just to give them that information. Victor, thank you so much for all that you've done. I know that you would love more people to join in with this. Some of the ideas that you've shared about what we could do next as a church, it all takes volunteers, doesn't it? You've been doing this out of your own time.
Yeah.
And if others are able to contribute time to this, then we'll be able to move further and faster.
Yes.
So, if there's people listening to this who are willing to give some time to this, then please do let me know or let Victor know, and that will be a real help for us.
Right. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Victor.